Okay, thank you, Jason. It's great to be back. So one of the occupational hazards of being a startup founder, especially B2B, is trying to explain to your parents just what it is you do. Hey, mom, dad, I'm starting a data marketplace. They have so many questions. A data marketplace? What is that even a thing? I mean, do people buy and sell data? It sounds risky. I mean, are you sure you don't want to just become a doctor? And, so I thought I'd come to TechTO and do an audience poll. Is a data marketplace a thing? How many of you have actually bought or sold data within the last year? Okay, so maybe medical school was not such a bad idea. I'm actually going to put it to you that you're all wrong, in a way. Every one of us transacts data every single day. We just don't realize it. Every time you use Google or Facebook or Twitter, you're selling your information to those companies. You're not getting paid for it in cash, but you are getting paid for it in the form of free services. Every time you read a review on Amazon, every time you follow a Netflix recommendation, you're actually buying data from them, and you're paying for it in the form of your loyalty. Each one of us transacts information every single day. And this is actually new. This was not the case even 10 years ago. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, if you're not buying the product, you are the product. What does that actually mean? Does it mean that your physical person is the product? No. It means your interests, your habits, your profile, your data. We're all familiar with kind of the traditional physical economy, agriculture, housing, transportation, industry. Over the last couple of decades, we've become accustomed to what I'd call the digital economy, where you get music and movies and social connections over the internet. What's happening right now is the emergence of what I would call the data economy. Okay? And this is really, really big. It's already worth trillions of dollars. I mean, how much would Google be worth today without its data? Not a lot. I'm going to put it to you, and this is kind of the heart of my talk today, that we here in Toronto, Canada, have some really unique advantages when it comes to navigating this data economy. And I'm going to start with the most important one. Strong governance. See, Jason mentioned data is the new gold or the new oil. Well, if that's the case, there's a lot of places out there, it feels like the data economy is the wild, wild west. There's not many rules. A lot of companies seem to do whatever they think they can get away with. I don't know about you, but that's not the data economy I want to live in. And I feel that here in Canada, we can and should do things differently. We have a strong and engaged citizenry. We have politics that's not dominated by oligarchs or plutocrats or ideological single parties or corporations writing laws. We can actually do that. In Silicon Valley, where I go to quite often, they say things like, move fast and break things. Better to ask forgiveness than permission. I prefer a different philosophy. With great power comes great responsibility. Right? That's what I think we should do, and that's what we can do. Second advantage is just the diversity of talent we have in Toronto. Right? I mean, it's no secret that we have engineers and designers and data scientists and technologists every bit as good as New York and San Francisco. Where we stand apart, where we shine, is how diverse those people are. Diversity of backgrounds, diversity of experience, diversity of perspective. They come from around the world. Mayor John Tory talked about that, right? Immigration. They come and study in our schools. That gives us perspective, which is so valuable. I'm sure you've all heard stories of how unthinking algorithms can codify and perpetuate societal biases. Well, I like to think that our diversity here in Toronto can be the remedy for that. And then the final thing is just, all this data is great, but it's not of that much value unless you can find the right application for it. And we have that as well. New York has finance, LA has movies, Chicago has manufacturing, Toronto has it all, right? We can actually build ways to use that data, and that's powerful. We also have, goes without saying, we have some of the best AI and ML talent in the world. It's not a coincidence that I believe some of the biggest tech exits of last year were data companies and AI companies. Putting it all together, I do believe that we here in Toronto, Canada we're in just such a superb position to navigate the data economy. We have the opportunity, but we also have the responsibility to lead. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much. I guess I'll take questions. Okay, I guess I'll take questions.
Hi, over here, right here.
I'll get there eventually. Yeah, I got it.
Right here, this way, to your right, to your right.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
So I've been hearing a lot about Toronto's a great city. I'm a resident here, so I love Toronto. But I think there's a sort of a critical mass issue with Toronto. As much as we want to be talented, as much as we are talented, it's hard for us to grow just by sheer population and market size. How do you address that?
Well, I think there's two parts to it. There's several parts to it. One is we're not that small, right? We're like the 5th biggest city in North America, and we're growing faster than the ones above us. Trust me, I do know the data on that. But more importantly, I feel that a lot of these critical mass arguments are self-fulfilling prophecies, right? If you just look at the state that we're in today, or the condition that we were in 2 years ago, you might say, oh, we don't have enough talent, or we don't have a big enough market, or we don't have enough industry partners. But if you play bigger, right? If you start aiming if you start building in plans that are bigger than your current state, more often than not, those things create positive feedback loops and become true. And I don't want to harp too much on, take Quandl, for example. When we started, a small Canadian startup, nobody had heard of us outside of, forget outside Canada, forget outside Toronto, maybe outside of Church Street, which was our office. Recently, we got acquired by NASDAQ, which is a global, huge 10,000-person company with offices around the world. And I felt so proud of my team because they built something that was deemed worthy of this big, big American corporation felt that they couldn't build themselves. And it's not because we thought we were too small or we couldn't do it. We just said, yeah, we're going to do it. We can do it, and that kind of created the conditions that made it possible. So, I do think that jumping in often acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy.
One last question.
Maybe this time I'll be able to spot where they come from.
Thanks. You spoke about the emergence of the data economy. I'm interested in your perspective on what the implications of this are and what the future for data might look like.
It's rather a large question. I think I go back to something that Paul Graham wrote many years ago, which was very influential. Software is eating the world, right? There's no industry that's not being transformed by software and indeed being consumed by software. Take, say, taxi cabs. A few years ago, it was as low-tech and traditional and gritty an industry as you could imagine. Now, Lyft just filed for its IPO. Uber is around the world. There's ride-sharing and ride-hailing and transportation companies everywhere. Software made that possible, right? Software unlocked the resources, the untapped resources, all these cars that were empty, all these drivers who wanted to make some extra earnings. Software transformed that industry. And you're going to see the same thing happen with data, right? Because software is powerful, but software kind of supercharged with data becomes even more powerful. And you're seeing a lot of big companies, small companies, using data to make their operations, make their basic functioning just orders of magnitude more powerful based on their data resources. So I know that's a very high-level answer. I'd be happy to talk about it afterwards in more detail. But every industry is going to be transformed by the tsunami of data that's hitting the world.
Thank you.